I know many of you know Sander. He's a fixture in the New York office. He's actually known as someone, I understand, who roams the halls and talks to people. And I understand you've done that for a long time. In fact, back since your days as CMD in the Netherlands, talking to everyone, saying hello to the receptionist is another hallmark of yours.
Well, my most favorite guy to check in with was a guy called Martin, and he was in charge of the salary slips.
Oh, well, that's
so every now and then,
have.
Martin, are we sure all the slips are going out this year, of this month? And he said, yes, Sander, you can go to bed.
Did Martin ever avoid you?
No.
There's another thing that I think most of you know, but just to make sure, you're a transplanted New Yorker, moving to New Amsterdam from Amsterdam, I believe. And I just wanted to ask you, since we're with this New York crowd, how was that move? What were your reactions landing here?
Well, first of all, it was all about love. It had nothing to do with Accenture.
You love us, though, right?
Seriously. I was in resources before, doing the global role for resources. My now husband, then partner, used to live in Florida.
Oh, you got him to move to New York.
Well, I lived in Amsterdam,
so
we said, okay, where are we going to live?
Yeah.
Well, Miami or Florida is a bit. It's not in the list of qualified cities.
Fair.
Unfortunately, I would say, but so we settled. We said, okay, it's going to be Boston, New York, or Washington. And we said, well, if we go to the U.S., if we go to the East Coast, we go all the way. We go right there, Manhattan. And I asked Bill Green, who was my then boss. And I said, Bill, let's have a new relationship, etc.
Yeah.
What do you think? He said, I actually quite like the idea of people moving around a little bit. So go talk to Ellen and she'll take care of it. And that's what Ellen did. And here we are.
Yep. The rest of
and it's great. It's great.
I thought you were going to say Bill said you need to move to Boston, but
no, he didn't even make that attempt. No.
Okay, fair. So other fun facts about Sander that I've learned in a little investigation over the past few days and some calculations. So when you were CMD in the Netherlands, your successors, in fact, were 3 women. And one of them is still in office. So that was a really interesting fact for me. I knew Manon, and I learned that you've hired her during your time as a manager. You hired her as an intern and groomed her all the way up to the top spot. So I'd like to hear a little more about that.
Well, until you talked about it, I'd never thought about it like that my successors were 3 subsequent women. And in a way, that's not let's say, something that I did. But when I thought about who these women are, all 3 of them grew up, quote unquote, with me in our utilities practice. So that was actually something, and I thought, no, that's something I can be proud of. Yeah. Because apparently we had a good trajectory. We grew the business. These were the days that the utilities in Europe were liberalizing. So lots of change, lots of mergers, lots of new systems. So that's and we did great work. And apparently we had a good team, and we had a few good women on board, and they made it to the top, so to speak. It's quite phenomenal. And Manon actually now moved on to become the CEO of one of our clients. And Anja, who was before Manon, is now, I think she's on the number 46 of the most powerful women in the Netherlands, because she's a board member at a few companies. So it's fantastic, yeah.
So now I know we're all dying to ask, what kind of advice do you give? Obviously, you're a mentor to women and men, but clearly there's some magic Sander sauce that you're spreading.
No, well, let's say I was thinking about this a little bit, because first I would say I would not give different advice to women than to men. Because we're all living in the same world, and we're all trying to do our best for our clients. So I always have 3 pieces of advice. First, personal relationships. Okay. Yeah? Knowing your colleagues, knowing your clients, and building relationships with them is the cornerstone of every success. I think that is really important, and especially also on the client side. If you have worked with a client on a certain project and you move on to the next project, stay in touch. Clients appreciate that, they like that. and in a few years you get promoted to manager or to MD or beyond that, and you know the clients get promoted too.
So I'm going to interrupt you
Right.
because I think that's great advice, but how do you stay in touch? You know, what is your...
Pick up the phone.
You
Pick up
call
the
them,
phone, the
okay.
WhatsApp. Go stop by for a coffee. Organize events, dinners. So stay in touch
Okay.
and build those relationships.
Okay, so that's one.
That's one. Then the second piece of advice is don't wait to get asked to do something. Have the energy to take the initiative, to go beyond what's really needed, to do that little extra. Don't wait till someone asks you or tells you to do something. I mean, do what you think is best. Take a little risk. And this was back to this morning's discussion. If you take a little risk, there's also a risk that you go a little in the wrong direction every now and then, but that's fine. And then the third one is deliver the results. Deliver
Very
the results,
clear.
whether that's your project result, your deliverable, if you're internally in Accenture, let's say the reports that you're responsible for, or the HR team that you're responsible for. I mean, delivering the results goes a long way. Now, special piece of advice for the women.
Okay.
I was just reading in the Financial Times this morning. There's a book, and the title of the book is "Why Do So Many Incompetent Men Win in Business?"
Wow, that's page turner.
And this is about, this is a little bit about know the competition that you're up against. Because I see it every day. You have some men, they're continuously in your face. Not that I necessarily like it, but every now and then speaking up and showing what it is you can do and be at the forefront of something is a good thing.
So what if you're afraid to speak up? We've all been on the conference calls, right? There's 70 people on them. We've got a senior leader presenting. You want to say something. You kind of think about it. You hit mute. You go back on mute. It's easier to just go back to your email. You start to speak. It's not a magic formula, right? But what is your advice for people who just don't feel comfortable to speak up?
One risk per day.
Okay, you heard it here.
One risk per day, and that I mean by that, try something that you have not yet tried. And this can be a very simple thing. Try calling that client that you're thinking of, ooh, what is he or she going to say on the other end of the line? Or ask that question in the conference call, because I have the same thing. You know, you're in these rooms, you want to ask a question, you stand up, your heart goes ding, ding, ding.
It happens.
You just do it, but maybe you ask, your first question you don't ask in the big conference call with David Rowland, the global CEO. And maybe you ask your first question in the local community meeting with the Women's Network. So this is one risk per day, and what you will find is that in 99 out of 100 cases, it is okay.
Very good advice.
So that's how you build your confidence.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I'm going to take you back to January. It's still very cold out, so that's probably not hard to imagine. But you were on the hillside at the World Economic Forum, and you were part of the launch of the Partnership for LGBTI Equality, a labor of love, 5 years in the making. Tell us a little bit about that story.
We have had Accenture LGBT panels for 5 years. We've worked with Microsoft, EY, Salesforce, MasterCard, Omnicom to really progress the agenda, now ultimately culminating this year in the partnership, in the business partnership for LGBTI, and with the objective to implement the UN global standards for LGBTI inclusion throughout business in the world. So that's what we're trying to do.
That's awesome. I love that story, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Very inspiring. So back to the FT. You read the FT this morning. I once read the FT. It was about 2 years ago. And there was, I read it every day. That sounds a little odd, but I read a special story that stuck with me. And it was profiling a manager at Accenture. And she was talking about how she had graduated from college where she was very open and out and felt really inspired and comfortable. She came to work, and not because of anything at work, but just it was a new environment. So she felt like she should shut down, not be herself, not talk about her personal life. And you counseled her when you didn't know you were counseling her, which I think is really interesting. And it's a message as we think about creating a culture of equality and being role models no matter where we are. And I'd really like you to tell that story because I think it will give us all inspiration to be that person in every conversation.
Right. Yeah, so the story is in fact indeed more about role models and the fact that we are all role models all the time in every conversation that we have, big and small. And the story is about whom. She's called Katie. And I was visiting Atlanta, checking in with the local LGBT network, and we were just chatting about life, about work, how it is to be out at work. She asked me a question. So, being out at work, how do you do that? And I probably said something like, "Well, you don't have to sit everybody down and say, let me tell you something." No, you just talk at work about your life, what you've done over the weekend, what you've done with your wife, your husband, your partners, your families, whatever, and people will figure it out, and it will be okay.
Yeah.
And that's what she did.
Yeah.
And this, I just literally, I didn't know she was not out at work. This was the conversation, a few minutes.
Right.
And then a year or two later, I got the call from the Financial Times. We want to talk to you about this. So I guess the most important point for me is here, we're all role models in every conversation. And not only if you're leading the team or you're leading the company, you're a role model. No. Everybody is a role model for someone in your environment.
Yeah, I love that story. And again, it's a perfect segue back to our research. And I know you all talked a little bit about that this morning, but this whole notion of a culture of equality, which isn't a static thing. Companies are striving to get there. People are striving to get there. But the main driver is being in an empowering environment, because if you can't be yourself, if you don't feel comfortable, none of this is going to happen. And then you don't get to innovation because you're not sharing a diversity of thought. You're not contributing at your highest level. And Sandra, it takes me back to the video. I think you may have seen it here today, but culture of equality in one word. And you said?
Comfort.
And you're not the only one who said comfort, actually.
No, I think Amy also said it,
Yeah.
So, great minds think alike.
I was going to say that.
Always New Yorkers.
Well, what was the moment that you knew you had comfort at Accenture? Is there a story? Is there something you did, something you received?
No, well, there are many, let's say, everybody has stories that give you comfort and everybody has stories that don't give you comfort. One story that didn't give me comfort was I was in a conversation and I overheard two managers saying to each other, listen, if you're not married in this place, you're never going to get promoted to manager. Okay. And it was not true, but let's say it was not a policy. Maybe there was some truth in it. You have to imagine this 25 years ago. So that gave me discomfort. A story that gave me comfort when I joined Accenture. After 2 weeks, they asked me, Sandra, in 2 weeks there's the office party. Are you coming? I said, yes, of course. But I also had to ask myself the question, am I going to bring my partner to the office party? And everybody sees I'm gay. Well, I just did it, and it was okay. It was my risk for that day. So let's say we all have these, but why I said comfort is, if we don't feel comfortable 100% at work and be ourselves and be authentic and can talk about anything outside of work, we cannot be our best.
Right.
And at Accenture, everybody wants to be their best, that's one. But especially at Accenture, we want everybody to be the best, because if we are at our best, we do the best possible job for our clients. Yeah. So this is not just about some wishy-washy blah, blah. No, this is about Accenture being the best company for our clients.
Yeah. If you're not comfortable, you're worrying about all the wrong
Exactly.
stuff.
Exactly.
So we are at that magical point where I have to share.
Where someone is going to take a risk?
Okay. Well, someone could take a risk, but questions for Sander. We're here. We have his undivided attention and his undivided wisdom.
Should we speak up? The answer to that is yes. Are we always at our best in doing so? Probably not, because we're also not perfect. Have I been in situations where we had difficult conversations? Yes. I've been in a conversation with the CEO about diversity and inclusion, and this was specifically because this topic close to my heart about the LGBT agenda. And the CEO he said across the table from me, he looked at his HR lead, he said, we don't have a problem here. Huh? No, we have John. John? Yeah, John was the communications lead who was gay. No, we have John. I said, but do you? No, seriously. So I said to him, but was an insurance company. So I said to him, but are you really sure that Mary and Joe, when they show up at work in the policy administration, that they feel at home in your company? And then he looked at me. Oh, well, you may have a point in. Of course we want people when they show up at work to feel at home. We cannot have that they don't feel at home. And so, I mean, I think with that one conversation, I helped flip his switch. It was not just my contribution, but I think, and now he's an ally. He goes to the Pride and everything. So, and I'm not saying that was just that one conversation, so don't get me wrong, but you could see, but this is again, every now and then you need to take a risk, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So, but should we speak up if we don't see, if we see something that is not as it should be? Yes. I know of situations that Ellen or other folks in HR have contacted people in HR at the client saying, listen, this type of behavior that your person has displayed vis-a-vis our employee, man or woman, doesn't matter. We cannot have that, and action has been taken. So we should always speak up if it's not at the client or you don't get the traction at the client. Speak up in Accenture, and we'll help you deal with the challenge.
Great question. I think your comments have highlighted there's such a need for education, and I think it's another reason why we've been so supportive and so invested in research and putting facts out there that enable the conversation. So it's not a he said, she said, and we've been extremely vocal. But I love that example. It's so personal, and it had a great result. Yeah. So. We've created a video series that is featured online, and it's local market videos. It's our GMC leading from the top table, and it's a beautiful sort of montage of all that we stand for, our research, people's feelings, their investments in the programs. And I guess I would ask each one of you, send them to a man. Tell them, send them to a friend. They can be in Accenture, outside Accenture, but make sure that we're communicating. We each have a voice, and we can take all the voices in this room and elevate it to a much higher level. But particularly because we know we always have limited space and people have limited time on this day, we think this video and the way people learn now by watching videos and podcasts, this will really help us expand the impact.
We're leaning in on the leaders to say that this is not just a nice video or a nice PowerPoint or a bunch of emails. No, we expect you to do something with it. And the good leaders actually do something with it. I'm sure there are also leaders who don't, but it's always, and I am sure that the leaders who do progress better and faster and further than the leaders who don't. So ultimately, we'll make the progress that we're looking for. But it is the challenge that you're posing here is a good one, because think about Accenture. We are a company of 450,000 people, and now think about, let's say, average family size of 2.5. That's 1 million people. I come from a city called Amsterdam. In Amsterdam, there's 1 million people. So now think about, you have to change sort of a mid-sized city, their mindset, their actions, the way they operate, the way they behave. That doesn't go overnight. So that's why the agenda, the agenda of equality or the agenda of belonging, if you will, is not something that we do an email campaign and then we tick the box and we move on. Now, this is something that we've been on for the last 25 years, and we're going to be on for the next 25 years, because there will always be progress to make. But the most important thing is that we make progress from where we are. We don't have to feel, maybe we should, and we don't have to, we can feel proud of where we are, but we should also recognize that there is still progress to make, and we should get on it. And that is the true Accenture style, is we see the challenge, we get on the case, and we go for the next bit of progress. That's how Accenture works, and that is, I think, what we can all be proud of.
I just want to thank you for being candid, insightful, and just such a champion on all fronts. It's a pleasure to talk with you, and your messages really resonated. And I hope it's the start of more conversations, or the continuation of more conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And do pop by my office for a coffee or for a chat. You're always welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you.